Thanks, Goose. Lichdom Battlemage is an action RPG from independent developer Xaviant Studios.
This first-person caster aims to pull the mage out of the chorus line and thrust them into the front line.
Potential here.
The city of Dravassa has fallen to the demon-worshipping cult Malthus. After their leader, Count Shax, destroys your life and leaves you for dead, a mysterious old sorcerer comes to town and equips you for revenge.
What are these things?
They are my gift to you.
With your braces of power, you become the Dragon, an immortal mage with the power to control arcane magic.
What? Come on, you can't give me all this power and just leave.
You can play as a male or female character, each of whom has a pleasantly familiar voice.
Yes, there's voice work from our favourite shepherd, Jennifer Hale, and also Troy Baker, who's best known for his work as Joel in The Last of Us, and of course Booker from Bioshock Infinite. He voices the male lead.
Star power extravaganza.
Who the...
Well, you're not the prey I was hoping for.
Both are wonderfully characterized and unsurprisingly deliver stellar performances.
You don't look like a cultist.
Roth sent me to scout your path. He calls me your griffin. It looks like you could use the help.
Why am I supposed to trust you, huh?
You're not the only one who hates Shax or Zero.
And no matter who you choose, you'll get to hear them both work their magic.
Yeah, magic.
Throughout the entire game, because whoever you don't choose becomes your shape-shifting scout and follows you on your adventure.
Yes, they have some wonderfully chummy interactions, don't they?
What got you this time?
An entire canyon full of undead. I think Shax knows we're here.
Yes, your companion is great company until you get into combat where they become conveniently preoccupied.
Hey, Griffin, feel free to pitch in! Griffin! Damn it!
Let's talk about the combat, which is a bit complex, so bear with us.
Yes, there are 3 different types of combat abilities that you can perform. Left click fires your main single target attack, and holding left and right mouse buttons triggers AoE blasts.
The right mouse is your defensive button. Holding it will mute some of the damage coming your way. And a well-timed block will launch a counter which does critical damage to all enemies in front of you. A clever addition, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, there's no melee, so it's nice to have some way of fighting back when enemies are all up in your mage's grill. You've also got a dash to help you zip out of dangerous situations.
Then you have different arcane powers to play with. You start off with the typical magic fare: fire, ice, and lightning. But over time, you do start to unlock more interesting powers.
My favourite is that plague one. You infect your enemies, and when they die, little parasites burst out of them to help you take out remaining enemies. It's gross. And awesome.
There are a few dud ones though, and that fire and ice combo is just so overpowered, you end up just using that mostly and hot swapping the third one simply because you can. I tinkered with the other elements, but I just found they weren't as effective.
I disagree. I think this game is actually at its best once you start putting time and thought into those attack combos and really making the most of the advantages of each magic type.
Yeah, just freeze and blast all day. That does the job. Attack combos are called synergies and are a good way of dealing extra damage. For example, a frozen enemy takes double critical damage from fire. The song of ice and fire continues.
Even if you do decide to be boring and just stick with 2 elements, you'll constantly be cycling through new spells, and this is where the combat becomes truly complex. Spellcrafting.
Indeed. By destroying crates and killing enemies, you collect 2 different classes of items: shapes and augments. These can be combined in the crafting menu to form new, more powerful spells.
Shapes define what kind of spell you'll cast. For instance, a lobbed or stream attack. And applied augments tune your attack with different bonuses, such as increased strength or casting negative statuses on enemies. And the game becomes very much about getting the best spell fragments you can in order to create epic magics. By reaching checkpoints and levels, you increase the rarity of dropped items to a maximum of 5. When you die, the counter resets.
Considering you're an immortal being, this was such a great way to add consequence for dying. That said, I felt like most of my deaths were pretty cheap. Some enemy attacks are poorly telegraphed and just do crazy amounts of damage.
Yeah, I do think the enemies are really well designed though.
You can't hide from me!
There's a nice variety of melee and ranged attackers, and some are higher ranking with interesting status buffs. There is a sense of chaos to each encounter, and the game does a really good job of actually making you feel powerful when you win.
I did like the enemies from a visual standpoint, such as the necromancer witches. They're terrifying up close and move with such an unnerving grace. Plus, giant crab boss.
Giant crabs are making a comeback. I think all the animations and effects are great, and I like that your hands are always up for some reason.
Without a weapon, it looks a bit silly, especially in the conversations.
Still makes my skin crawl.
Yeah, mine too.
What, you mean this?
Yeah, I feel like this would only be specific conversations this would work for, such as, I'm going jewelry shopping tomorrow.
Oh, okay. No, I'm just going to the supermarket. I might just pick and choose
really?
the fruits and the vegetables, see what takes my fancy.
I'm testing out an assortment of pianos tomorrow.
I'm getting my nails done.
I'm massaging strangers on the bus tomorrow. No! As I walk past them. That kind of thing.
That was the creepiest damn thing I've ever seen.
Watch yourself. For all we know, he can hear us.
Oh yeah, that makes me feel a lot better.
This game does make good use of CryEngine 3. Each level has some wonderfully designed areas. And I was blown away by that frozen maelstrom.
Yeah, and that desert getting pelted by falling meteorites. Very cool.
It's just a shame that those points of interest were so far apart. I thought the levels were painfully linear. You just end up wandering through tunnel after tunnel in what could only be an effort to extend the game's duration. I think I spent about 6 hours in that snow area.
Yeah, that was my main concern with this game, actually.
Don't run!
As much fun as I was having with the combat, getting stuck in the same zones, fighting the same enemies for hours on end was tedious work.
They did try to counter that tedium with some side path distractions, though. Like the wave mode battles, which yield a nice big loot payoff on completion. They're nice and self-contained, but really they are just more of the same.
Yeah, what they really needed to do was just trim all of that fat to improve the pacing of the main progression. What are you going to give it, Bajo?
I really wanted to like this game. But for me, there was just too much repetition in the combat and the scenery, and that got in the way of the fun a bit, so I'm giving it 6.5.
I actually thought that the mechanics of this game were fantastic, particularly that deep spellcrafting system, and it was so good to have Jennifer Hale's reassuring voice back in my life, so I'm going to give it 8 out of 10.
Right, we've got a pretty big email to answer at the Ask Good Game desk, Hex. Shall we?
Yeah.